Am I the jerk for making my sibling mad over using their idea, even though they agreed to it? I, 17-year-old male, and my sibling, Riley, 14 years old, usually have a good relationship, but we often get into arguments over stories we write. My sibling has always tried writing a story but never fully committed to one. It always ended up as cool ideas that never got fleshed out. I regularly write stories and have done so since 6th grade. I am currently finishing my first year in high school. I am also decent at drawing my own characters, which is why I like writing stories. I suspect Riley could be jealous of me, even though they have their own cool skills. For example, Riley could have a cool idea about a dragon but cannot decide if it should be huge or not. Instead of deciding on one or the other, they throw other ideas on top of it without actually deciding. I always tried to help them whenever they asked, but it usually ended up in arguments about minor details. Riley thought it would be funny if they gave me a few ideas and I would write an entire story based on them. I agreed to the challenge, which surprised them, but they willingly gave me a few ideas. A few days ago was the first time I started to think about the possible story based on their ideas. That day I called Riley to my room to choose one name out of two without context for fun, since I could not decide. The names were Calogero and Salvador. Riley said no to both names. When I asked why, they said it did not align with their vision and sounded stupid. After that, we ended up arguing about my other ideas. When Riley told me they did not like any, I offered, hey, if you want to say on the story, then we can work together, but they did not want to. Riley got mad over details like, oh, I thought it would be cool if the sun was blue, but Riley said it did not make sense, even though their story idea was in the sci-fantasy realm. Then they got mad, left, and have not spoken about it since. Now I feel conflicted if I even want to continue with this writing challenge or not. Would I be foolish if I did so? This is not the first time we argued about trivial things like this, and I feel as if I am going mad over it. That is it. Judge me, because if I am the antagonist, then I would like to know. It's clear Riley has a lot of creative ideas but struggles to fully develop them, leading to frustration. They may have been excited about the challenge but got upset when the story didn't align perfectly with their vision. It's probably best to move on from this challenge and focus on your own projects where you have full creative control. Keep writing and don't let these arguments discourage you. Your persistence is inspiring. Am I the jerk for refusing to go on a family trip because I feel that my boundaries were not being respected? For context, I, a 30-year-old man, was invited to a family trip by my brother, a 34-year-old man, with my mother, a 62-year-old woman, my uncle, a 58-year-old man, and two cousins, a 30-year-old man and a 33-year-old woman. Everyone mentioned in this trip has a significant other except for my mother and me. My mother is a widow. When planning the trip and picking the house, my brother indicated that my mother and I would have to share a room. I let them know that I am not comfortable with this for two reasons. My mother is a 62-year-old woman who deserves her own space and should not have to share with anyone. I am a 30-year-old adult man who should have his own room. I even offered to pay the difference for a bigger Airbnb. My brother and his wife then got upset, saying they would share the room with my mother and that you don't need your own room, you're single, and are being selfish, and offered to share the room with my mother and I would take theirs. I do not want to speak for my mother, but she is too nice to stand up for herself in these contexts. I have spoken to her and know how she feels. However, she just said that she is okay with that arrangement to make my brother happy. The truth is, she told me that it makes her feel like an afterthought. After losing my father, she feels like she is treated as less important or valuable due to stuff like this. This is not the first time my brother has tried to pull something like this. She told me it made her feel like he or anyone else in the family did not really care about her to even consider giving her her own space. She was also upset that nobody else was asked to share the double room with two queen beds. She is my uncle's older sibling and the oldest in my family. She feels like my cousins and uncle always treat her like less, and nobody else will be sharing a room except their spouses or kids. I just feel like we should all have our own rooms, and they should all be equal. I do not want to have to share a room just because I am single, while my brother basically rolls out the red carpet for everyone else, giving my cousin the master bedroom even though my brother is planning the trip, or force my mother to have to do the same thing. When I offered to just not come, since it would solve all the problems, they got upset again, calling me dramatic and saying I am disrespecting the family. So, am I the asshole here? You were more than fair and generous to offer to pay the difference for a larger house that accommodates everyone. It seems unreasonable that your brother and his wife insist on this house, and this house only. Your mother, as the oldest and now a widow, deserves her own space and should not be treated like a 12-year-old. Go on vacation with your mom and make some great memories. She deserves it. Am I the jerk for asking my partner to block one of their friends? He met her on a dating site before we were together. When I started seeing him, he still had his profile up, and it clearly listed his age correctly, which is 30. This woman was 18. You cannot change your age, so I know he didn't, but she was under the impression that he was only 22 for some reason. They had started out sexual, but once she learned his age, she didn't want to talk to him that way anymore, and they were friends since. After I came into the picture and learned about their backstory, I wasn't totally happy, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt. until I accidentally came across a nude video of her on his phone. I told him he needed to delete it, and he refused. He said he gets attached to those sorts of things, but our relationship was still fresh, maybe a couple of weeks in at this point. So I still gave him the benefit of the doubt, but I expected him to delete it at some point. He didn't delete it for like 2 months after this, and he only did because he got tired of me talking about it. But I don't think that's wrong of me to talk about. I think when most monogamous couples decide on monogamy, they want it to be monogamous. He claimed he never watched it anyway, but if that was the truth, I don't see why he would fight to keep it in the first place. After he had deleted it, she texted him a few months later and told him not to let me look at his phone. I saw this text and of course made him act like I wasn't there to see what she would say. She sent him a video of her in a bikini and was asking about how her body looked in it. If she didn't start with, "Don't let your girlfriend see," maybe I would think it was a friend asking a friend an innocent question. But that stacked on top of him not wanting to delete her nudes, them being friends despite the past, and her being very obviously the beauty standard. Blue eyes, blonde hair, skinny, clean girl aesthetic, and what seems to be, to me, fishing for compliments after asking him to hide it from me. Yeah, I'm bothered. I showed this, but never suggested they shouldn't be friends. He blocked her because he was sick of the arguments between us about her. I don't consider myself unattractive. I'm actually quite happy with my appearance, but for someone to find me attractive, I probably have to be their type. I have green hair, piercings, a thicker build, and an alternative aesthetic, which is why this bothers me so bad. My boyfriend originally stated that he loved my appearance because it's unique and not anything close to what you see daily. But his opinion of my style has shifted to, "But I do see you every day now," and he wants me to tone it down. I can't help but think he had something going on with this girl, and the opinion shift with me definitely makes me solidify the thought that I was just a fetish that went too far, and that type of girl is what he's truly into. This makes me feel like I'm not wrong even more here, but he still paints me as the bad guy that stole his friend away. Am I the evil one? You are not the one at fault, but seriously, your boyfriend is the real problem here. He's been preying on teenagers as a 30-year-old, which is just unacceptable. You should definitely break up with him because he's a cheater and borderline predator. You already know he's an asshole, so why keep dealing with this mess? Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that it's not my job to step in and parent my niece and step-niece? My brother and sister-in-law have been married for 8 years now. Both brought a daughter each into the marriage. My brother brought May, who is 16 years old, into the marriage, and my sister-in-law brought Ava, who is 15 years old, into the marriage. The girls have never liked each other or gotten along. Everyone knows the two would rather do anything than spend time with each other. We have all been around when they fight. We have all heard them say mean and cruel things to each other. They are both as bad as each other. It stems from jealousy. May does not like sharing her father when she already lost her mother. Ava is jealous that May has a father when her biological father walked out on her, and she is insecure about May being my brother's biological daughter, even though she calls him dad. And he calls her his daughter too. This makes May more jealous of sharing her father. We were always told not to get involved when the girls are being mean to each other. 3 weeks ago, my brother threw a party to celebrate a very big promotion at work. He invited friends, family, and people from work. At one point, he gave a small speech and toast, and he mentioned his amazing daughter May, but he did not mention Ava. The girls had been fighting already during the party, and when her father said that, May taunted Ava that she is not really my brother's child, and no father would ever want her. Ava was distraught. When my sister-in-law found out about it, she went crazy. Then, when she found out I overheard, she told me I should have stepped in and reprimanded May for talking to Ava like that and destroying her heart. I pointed out they always made it clear we should not get involved. She said something like that is different. I asked her if the time Ava told May her mother did not love her enough to fight cancer to be with her was different, and if I should have reprimanded Ava for that. My sister-in-law said it was very different, and no, I should not speak to Ava that way, but I should speak to May that way. She said Ava did not deserve it. Then she told me I am the worst kind of adult when I can stand by and allow bullying like that to happen. Am I the asshole? You are not in the wrong here. This is cruel. These girls are teenagers, and they don't want to be together. Their parents should be keeping them apart, not forcing them into high-emotion situations. It's unfair to expect anyone to read minds and adjust accordingly. Am I the jerk for telling my parent they're not allowed to give their speech at my wedding? My fiancé and I, both in our 20s, are getting married in a month. There's a dispute with my father now, and he claims I'm being unfair, but I wanted to get some thoughts on it. My father decided he was going to give a speech at the wedding without saying anything to me first. He had shared the contents of the speech with his sister, my aunt, who knew it would not sit well with me and mentioned his plan to me. In the speech he wrote, he talks a lot about how his wife is the love of his life and how amazing she is. It's very similar to the speech he gave at their vow renewal 10 years ago. He hasn't shied away from expressing in front of me and to me that he never loved anyone like he loves his wife, and how all his past relationships pale in comparison. That includes my mother, who was his first wife, and who left him widowed with an 8-year-old son at the time, making it even more difficult for me to hear. The vow renewal was held on my 18th birthday, and I got to celebrate my birthday by hearing my father talk about how my mother meant nothing because his second wife was so much better. They were married for 8 years at the time, but a lot of family and friends didn't attend their actual wedding, so they decided to have a second one to celebrate on my birthday. Anyway, the speech he wrote for my wedding had a lot of this content from what my aunt heard from my father and read herself. She knew that on my wedding day, the last thing I needed to hear was how much he adores his wife, especially when he does so in a way that basically says my mother meant nothing to him. I told him I knew about the speech and that he didn't have permission to give it at my wedding. My father asked why not, and I told him I didn't want him to use my wedding to praise his wife. He said she means the world to us, so why would I say that? I told him she means the world to him, but she pales in comparison to my mother, who meant the world to me and still does. I told him he might have decided my mother meant nothing, but that didn't mean I shared his feelings. He accused me of being sensitive and then said it seemed like I didn't care about his wife at all. He said she was a good mother to me for the 8 years she raised me. I told him she was never anything more than his wife. My mother died when I was 8, and I didn't get a new one. The last thing I need to hear is how little she meant on my wedding day. My father told me to be reasonable, saying the parents of the bride and groom typically say something. I told him nothing he had to say had a place at my wedding. This is my fiancé's and my wedding, not his. I told him to get married again if all he wants to do is praise his wife, but it was not happening at my wedding. He told me to stop acting like a little boy and grow up. I left. Then his wife called, crying about the fight my father and I had, which led to my father calling me again and telling me to grow up again. Am I the asshole? You are not the jerk. Your father is being incredibly insensitive and self-centered, making it all about him and his wife on your wedding day. Stand your ground and make it clear that his speech is not welcome. Let the DJ or whoever is running the reception know to prevent him from speaking. If he tries to give the speech anyway, have a plan in place with trusted people to intervene and stop him. Your day should be about celebrating you and your fiancé, not about elevating his wife or downplaying the importance of your mother. Am I the jerk for what I said? My family won't let me share any good news because of my sister's disability. I, a 26-year-old female, have an older sister who is 32 years old and had a tragic accident 3 years ago that left her paralyzed from the waist down. It's been rough for everyone but especially for her. Our family rallied around her, helping out as much as we can, and I've been there every step of the way because I love her so much. But since the accident, it feels like I don't deserve to have any good things happen to me, or at least I'm not allowed to talk about them. Every time something positive happens in my life, I get shut down by my family. When I got a promotion at work last year, I was so happy and excited to tell them. I thought my family would be happy for me, but when I tried to share the news, my mom pulled me aside and told me to wait because my sister had a tough day. I ended up keeping it to myself. 8 months ago, my boyfriend proposed. When I told them, my mom immediately changed the subject, later telling me that my sister was feeling down about her own marriage struggles. It's like anything good in my life is an offense to my sister's situation. A few days ago, I finally managed to buy my first new car after saving up for years. I was so excited and thought my family would be happy for me. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, the room went dead silent. My mom whispered to me, "This isn't the time. Think about your sister." My sister looked so sad, and I instantly felt like the worst person in the world. I couldn't handle it anymore and said, "Can't I share anything good in my life? I thought you'd all be happy for me." No one knew what to say, so I left the house. I've never done that before. Now I'm filled with regret and confusion. I love my sister, and I never want to hurt her, but it feels like I'm not allowed to have anything good happen to me. It's getting to the point where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. I understand my sister's life has changed drastically, and I'm genuinely supportive and have always been there for her. But sometimes, I just want to be able to share my own life too. I feel so guilty for even feeling this way, like I'm being selfish or inconsiderate. Her husband and even my parents share things about their lives freely, and no one seems to mind. But as the younger sister, I'm not allowed to share anything good in front of her so I don't hurt her feelings. I get it. I really do. I understand she's going through a lot, and I don't want to add to her pain. But it feels like I'm not allowed to have any joy in my life around my family. I know I owe my sister an apology for how I reacted. I never want to make her feel sad, but I'm struggling with how to approach my family. I don't feel like I should apologize to them, and honestly, I don't think I'll be sharing anything with them in the future. I think you are not in the wrong here at all, but it's worth asking how your sister actually feels about you sharing good news. It's incredibly weird that you're the only person in your family who's not allowed to celebrate your successes. You owe nobody an apology for living and celebrating the good things in your life. If your sister wants to hear about your achievements, ignore your parents and share with her. If not, maybe it's time to distance yourself from those who can't support you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.